Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Nana. I'm speaking to you from Germany, this time from a different place because I went home for Christmas, obviously. Quite like this room as a backdrop for my video. And today is a Everything I Knit in 2025 video. So I started YouTube about a year ago with a tutorial type of video about how I knit a Christmas star. And I never did an Everything I Knit in video, and I'm actually quite excited for this one because I thought I didn't knit as much in 2025. However, it turns out there was quite some sock knitting escalation, and yeah, I have plenty of socks to share. Yes, I will not go through my finished objects in a chronological way, but rather category by category, and I will start with sweaters, then with accessories, gift knits and socks. Yes, in terms of sweaters, there was really not that many in my 2025 knitting year. I knit one cardigan, one pullover and one vest. And let's start with the cardigan, shall we? So, the cardigan I knitted is this one, the Wabi Sabi Cardi by Melina Paulina. I will insert some b-roll. It is a very chunky sweater knit up on 6mm needles. The yarn is BC yarn Hamilton Tweed 2, which is 80% wool, 20% viscose, and it has a very nice drape to it, and it is super soft, and it is GOT certified, GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standard, which I think is very worth paying attention to since the knitting community is growing so much. I think we have the market power to also put some pressure on yarn producers, I think, and animal welfare is super important. So I'm happy that I chose this yarn, which is also the recommended yarn for this cardigan. And it is super oversized, it's crop, so it goes very well with skirts and dresses, but also with high waist jeans and pants. It has these beautiful Latvian braid details at the sleeves, the shoulders, the back and the front, and I'm happy that I chose these duffel buttons. I think they go very well with this type of cardigan. The buttonholes also turned out quite small, so I basically also had to go with them, but I think they fit perfectly with this cardigan. And yes, so the edges are finished off with Italian bind-offs. The collar turned out a little bit tight, so I wish I had picked up some more stitches here. So if you want to knit this cardigan, please pay attention to the stitch numbers that you pick up for the collar. And yeah, I'm also happy that I went with the color natural because it fits with everything. And yeah, so I finished it in the summer months, maybe June, July, I don't know, I have to check. But yeah, so I haven't worn this one so much because there weren't enough cold days. Yes. So, but this is one of two cardigans I knitted. I knit the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit before, and then this one. I like the design feature of this button band, but I always wear them buttoned up, so I'm not very much of a cardigan person. Maybe if it was even a thicker one, that I could use it like a jacket. So yeah, I'm still eyeing the Nomad jacket by Wool and Beyond. Maybe one day I will knit that one. But this is my Wabi Sabi Cardi by Melina Paulina. Yes. Then next, the pullover I knit this year, 2025. Yeah, the lighting is a bit adventurous today, but yeah, I hope it works. And I'm using the microphone for the room, so if you hear some snoring, that's my dog. Sweaters or pullovers. I knitted only one, which is sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. And it's the second time I knitted this sweater. I had knitted before in a speckled brownish color in 2024, and I really liked the fit of it. So for me it felt like the perfect basic sweater pattern. It feels like a sweatshirt. It features these lovely horizontal shoulder details. I think it's called an European shoulder construction. You make increases on the back, and then for forming the shoulder cap you do German short rows along here. And it has long ribbing at the cuffs and at the hem, and it is quite heavy. It's knit up on 5mm needles, and I chose Pergint by Sandnesgarn and together with the Folgedraht, Alpaka Folgedraht by Sandnesgarn, both in the color Sunny Lime. And I knit the No Frills sweater by Petite Knit before in Sunny Lime, and I absolutely adored the color, but it is a very thin pullover, which is more like, it is a very thin pullover which has a more delicate feel to it, and I wanted to have something more rustic. That's why I thought I go for the Pergint, but then I found out that Sandnesgarn discontinued the Pergint in Sunny Lime, and I only found one retailer that still had some of it in stock, and I ordered it, and I was a bit disappointed because the dye lot was different. So it was more of apple green instead of this but yellowishy green. But I thought if I combine it with the Alpaka Folgedraht, it kind of like will make it more yellowish, but I'm still not so sure. I think it's okay. So it turned out good, so you can't see it here. Probably I will insert some footage or maybe pictures. But I'm not so sure yet. I've worn it a couple of times, but maybe I will try to sell it. I think I could part from this one, so maybe I'll try if someone wants to have it and loves it more than I do. But if not, I will also be happy with wearing it. I just don't reach out for it as often as I would like to. Yeah, but this is a very good basic pattern. Can highly recommend it. Sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and yeah, I have it even twice. Yes, next on the list is the Olympe sweater vest by Le Pull, which I think is quite a popular pattern by now, and it's a scrap yarn project. I never did a scrap yarn project before. This is my version of it. Here and here. And it was a lot of fun to knit it up, but also sometimes a bit annoying. I struggled a bit with the pattern, and I made a dedicated video just talking about this pattern and my issues with it. So if you consider knitting this vest, please check out this video. It might help you, and you might circumvent some problems from the start. I had the issue that because this vest is knitted sideways, so you start here somewhere in the front, knit the front panel, then the back, then the other side of the front, and that's why once you are into knitting you cannot change the length anymore easily, and especially also the depth of the armholes, and they turned out a bit too not wide enough for me, for my liking, and I did some adjustments here at the ribbing. So you can see here that I have more rows on the top than under the shoulders. So I applied some German short rows here and adjusted something for the ribbing around the arms, because I also didn't want this to kind of like bend outwards. I think this pattern is a bit prone to that. Yeah, nevertheless, so after some knitting engineering, I think I managed to turn this into a lovely piece. These are old buttons that were still in the button box from my grandmother. I was happy that I could use some of them. And this vest is a very nice collage of all my knitting projects. So it has this green here in it from my very first sweater. And then this is my Sunday sweater. So yeah, it's like a photo book, a photo book of all knitting projects I did before. And I chose to use rather thin stripes. That made my life much harder than it should have, because it also meant many more loose ends to weave in. So a lot of people may have like chunkier stripes, and I can see why. It makes total sense. Yeah, anyway, I'm quite happy with it. I think it's knit up on 5mm needles, if I'm not mistaken. And it is quite heavy, quite woolly. You can wear it with a t-shirt underneath, but I think it's more a garment for the colder month. And yeah, so this is my Olympe sweater vest by Le Pull. Then, coming to accessories. I actually started the year with knitting 2 hats. And the first one, it was like this amazing pattern that was released by my favorite things knitwear, and this is Beanie No.6. And it is this shearling hat type of beanie, which is knit up in, well, the pattern recommends Woollier Gepard yarn, which I also shows in the color in Coffee Latte 105 and Gepard yarn Teddy Deer in 101 Off-White. And so it looks like animal coat, like animal fur, but obviously it's not, which makes much more sense to leave the skin on the animal so that it can keep on producing yarn. And it is definitely a beanie more like for city life, and well, you can obviously also wear it when you hike Mount Everest, but well, if you want to do it in a fashionable way. I think it's more of like a city dweller's hat. And for me this turned out a little bit too tight. I will try to block it again. But I don't like when a hat squeezes my hair too much. And this is a bit the case with this one. Nevertheless, I adore this style, and I even think about knitting a second one in dark brown with dark brown teddy boucle yarn. And these lines here, those are I-cord edges. They're knit on top of it. There are other shearling head type knitting patterns. By, for example, Susanne Müller has one, and then there was another girl, and they often use crochet lines up here. But this one is knitting all over. It has like a double folded brim, so you have 3 layers of knitting, and yeah, it's quite warm actually. I think I want to attach it so that the brim stays in place. Yeah, Beanie No.6 by my favorite things knitwear. Lovely pattern. Then the next one was another hat, but a self-drafted one, because I had some yarn in my stash which I wanted to use up, and it was that amount of yarn when you think, okay, maybe a hat. And that was Lana Grossa Brigitte No.2 in the color 09 red, and then I used the color 60 grau-brown, grey-brown. And this is a self-drafted pattern and with horizontal stripes. I really like the fit of it because it is not as tight and doesn't squish my hair too much. It has also a double folded brim, and I sewed it to the rest of the head to make it really stay in place, but it has this kind of like squishy brim, and because it was even a bit too wide, I lined it with some t-shirt fabric. I do that a lot with my hats because I think it makes I can have like control over the fit. It makes them more windproof, and it is against itching yarn. And I also made a video in which I show how I do it, which you can find here. Yeah. And this hat is super soft, and it's a good hat or a good beanie for when I want to add a pop of color to my outfit. I can choose this one. Yeah, then the third accessory, which I knitted in 2025, is a very autumnal piece, so this is definitely something for the month of fall because of its color. And this is the I Love Stripes bandana by Susanne Müller, aka Paula Strickt. And I absolutely love this pattern, and I think the colors are also really nice. It's knit up in Knitting for Olive's Pure Silk in the color Hokkaido, and the stripes are in the color Cream. And it is quite airy, quite light, so it is actually very good for the months of late August, September, early October. And I in my knitting podcast in which I talked about this pattern, I also recommended this pattern a lot because I think it's a super nice basic pattern to have in your pattern library for a bandana. You start here in the middle and you make increases along the central line and then increases along these edges, and this forms this triangle. And obviously you can leave out the stripes. I also very much like a solid colored one, but where you still have those lines in pearl stitches to add a bit of structure to it. But obviously you can also knit it all over and stocking it in one solid color or add stripes, whatever. Yeah, so this is a lovely little scarf. I knitted that one before in a baby blue and cream, and this is now, my sister-in-law has it now and really likes it. Yeah, and I think it's a nice little scarf. On her sample picture, Susanne Müller, she wears it as a headscarf, but I'm not a headscarf type of person. I like it like this. Yeah. Then I made another tiny little accessory for myself in 2025, and that's a scrunchie. Whoa, oh my god, where is it? Here. It is this scrunchie in spring colors. I actually knitted in April, May, something like this. And I like a knitted scrunchie. So this pair is self-drafted. I think I just knit something like a headband and then I sewed it together. So there are a lot of scrunchie patterns out there that use mohair or lace weight yarn, but I like it in fingering weight or even DK weight. I like a chunky knitted scrunchie because I wear like a top bun a lot, and I think it adds volumes to my hairstyle, and somehow I like it. Yeah, so it has this light green, pink, purple, very springy. Yeah, those were the accessories I knitted up for myself in 2025. And in terms of gift knits, I knitted 2 little slipovers for my little nieces. Yeah, because I had some pink yarn in my yarn stash left for that I used for a scarf I knitted for my niece last Christmas, and I wanted to use that up, and I combined it with a grey beige yarn. And for the pink top I used Lang Yarns Merino 200 Baby in the color pink, and the beige one was Chaos Merino in the color Faithful 1007. And for my other niece I made a blue one, and here the blue is also by Chaos Merino, and I embroidered flowers on the front. The pattern is also self-drafted. I didn't find anything in the gauge that I liked for kids, so I made it up on the go, and it works quite well, although for the little one the blue is already too short. So when I gave it to them for this year Christmas, and I also included a voucher for elongation service because I have some yarn left and I can add a couple of centimeters, but they grow quite fast, which is a bit of a problem for when you knit things on 3mm needles that take some time. Yeah, but they are happy about it. They like their little tops a lot, and they can wear them in the hotter month without anything underneath, and in the colder month with a t-shirt underneath. And I think that goes very well for them. Almost exactly 1 year ago, I started my YouTube channel by posting a video about knitting Christmas star ornaments based on a free pattern. And I knitted one of those stars for this year's Christmas as a gift for someone in the family. So unfortunately I can't show it to you because I gave it away, but it has almost like roughly this size. And the fun part of it is to embroider it with beads. I really like embroidering those Christmas star ornaments with different kinds of beads and scrap yarns. And yeah, the person who received it also was very happy about it. And if you want to know how to knit those stars, please check out this video. The pattern is free on Ravelry. It's not my pattern, it's by another woman, but in my video I go through the pattern step by step and give a bit of like visual guidance. I didn't knit anything else for anyone else. Oh yeah, socks. There will be socks for someone else. But I gifted a beanie to my dog. She's an elderly dachshund and she needed a hat. She's the one who's snoring in the background. It's not really a beanie, it's more of a balaclava. Obviously you need a kind of like beanie cowl combination for a dog so that it stays on. Let's see what it looks like on her little head. Here's Emmy. Oh, Emmy, she's very tired. I have to put her back to bed. But Emmy survived the cold of the north. When I was knitting this balaclava, we had minus 10 degrees and Emmy was suffering a bit. But she's okay. She's very old. She's deaf and almost blind. Come on. And in my last video, in which I showed you how I knitted up the balaclava, I said that I'm not sure about the fit when you have a dog that is more active than Emmy, because Emmy doesn't move around a lot anymore. But my brother has a 1-year-old terrier and we tried it on her. Enjoy. Yeah, and when the dog shakes their head, then the hood part moves to the back, which is actually also really cute, and you can just pull it back up again. So it's not that it kind of like blinds the dog because it shifts to the front. It actually becomes like a hood. So that was quite cute. And I used thrifted yarn. I used 4.5mm needles, and I designed it, and in my video as well as on Ravelry you can find the pattern. So I wrote it down that you have an idea. If you have a dog almost the same size, you can just take it or take my pattern for free as an inspiration to knit something up for your dog. But please only do it when you know that your dog likes something on the head. So these were my sweaters, accessory, gift knits, knit for my dog. Socks. So a lot of socks. Let me show you the pile. There's a big pile of socks that I knitted in 2025. I was never a big sock knitting person before, but then I found out about the creative freedom that you have for sock knitting, and then I don't know, something exploded in my brain and I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. Yeah, so I think I knitted 11-12 pairs of socks this year, all but one pair for myself, and all self-drafted. So I think it's fairly easy to teach yourself how to knit a flap and gusset heel and a toe, and then combine these techniques and come up with your own sock knitting pattern. That's what I did. So the first pair is this already quite pilled one. These are knitted in Zauberball edition 3 color Taupunkt, and I combined them with the beige, and that's Juniper Moon Farm Alpaka socks in the color 2002, held double, because I thought it's super fun to combine this color transition sock yarn with a solid color beige. I knitted them on 2.5 millimeter needles, and they turned out a bit too loose, I would say, so I wear them mostly in the house and during the night. And they're super soft. I really like them. This kind of like rainbow colored yarn is actually not so much my cup of tea, but I think there are interesting ways in which you can combine that type of yarn with a solid colored one, like here, or if you do striped ones, to have one striped in this rainbow colored yarn and then the second stripe in the solid color. And I think that could also be quite nice. Maybe I'll try that one day. But that was my first pair of socks in 2025. And then I thought it would be so cool to have socks that I can actually wear in sneakers, that are thin enough so that I don't have to buy shoes in a larger size, and that also don't make me feel like I walk on a net. That means I had to size down in the needle. I went down to 2 millimeters. That's the US 0 size for needles, to have even smaller stitches. And I had this yarn still in my stash, the Juniper Moon Farm. The second pair of socks was this one. And I think those are the perfect colors for hand knit socks. These are also knitted in Juniper Moon Farm Alpaka socks in the color 2002 and 2020. And they're all over stockinette stitch, flap and gusset heel. They have 2x2 ribbing and again a rolled edge. I really like these rolled edges. I add some rows of stockinette stitch and I cast on 10 more stitches than I then have for the rest of the socks and decrease in the second row. By this I make sure that the cuff, the edge of the cuff is really as stretchy as possible. And they are super soft. In my sock video, which I posted about like 8 months ago, I said I wasn't so sure whether I like alpaca sock yarn, but I think I do. So they are super soft. They have some nylon in it, so they should be sturdy, and I've worn them actually quite a lot. And because those were 100 gram hanks, I had plenty of yarn left for another pair, and I knitted these. So they have quite long legs and quite long 1x1 ribbing at the leg. I don't know, maybe 15 centimeters long 1x1 ribbing, but then stockinette stitch, flap and gusset heel again, a normal toe, and they have irregular striping, so they don't have like always the same number of rows per stripe, but different row counts per stripe. And I really like irregular striping, as I keep on saying in my videos. Super soft. Unfortunately, the foot turned out a bit too short, and I'm still contemplating whether I should graft, cut them open, do some knitting surgery, and insert some more rows. So I don't know. Or if I should reopen the toe. Yeah. I mean, they do fit, but to have the foot quite long is actually crucial for the longevity of socks, as I had to learn with my next pair of socks, which is 100% wool, sheep wool, no nylon in it, and it's these socks. They are knit also on 2mm needles, that's US 0, and the color is A573, I think. Yeah, A573. 1x1 ribbing again, stockinette stitch, flap and gusset heel, and the rolled edge, my kind of like signature sock edge. And as you can see, I already mended them, the yarn, and there's even a new hole which I have to mend. And I think once I've done that, maybe I will put these socks into my household use, like that I wear them in the house or in the bed at night. I mean, I put them under quite a lot of pressure. I wore them in very worn down sneakers that were not so sock friendly anymore. I wore them on 2 city trips when I walked around so much. Yeah, but still. So rule number 1 for sock knitting, especially when you knit with 100% wool, is to make the feet long enough, 2 or 3 centimeters longer than your normal foot length. That helps a lot. And yeah, because they also felt and shrink. And yeah, they also felt and shrink, but I really like this felting because I think it makes them softer and it makes me feel even less like walking on a net. I really like the look of them. This color, it's kind of like an olive green, I would say. A bit more yellowy than olive green, but I think that's the ideal color for hand knit socks. I really like them. And because I like the yarn so much and this super crisp, clear stitch definition it gives, I wanted to have another pair, and that's why I knitted these. So they are also Retrosaria Pomar Mondim in the color A583, and same pattern, 1 and 1, 1x1 ribbing, rolled edge, stockinette stitch, flap and gusset heel, normal toe. And I wore these a lot and they don't have any holes because I knitted them longer. So these socks in dusty pink, I would say. It's also a nice color for socks. It is a bit of color, but it's not an in-your-face color. So I really like these as well. Then I wanted to try out another yarn. I had some of the pink here left and I bought these Snowdonia, Garthenor, Snowdonia socks. And I bought a 50 grams hank and I knew it would be not enough for socks for me. But I thought if I add a toe and heel in a different color, like the pink I had left, I can make it work. And they are a bit short. I wish they would be a bit longer. But it is the same pattern. The 1x1 cuff is a bit shorter, also a bit of a rolled edge, stockinette stitch, flap and gusset heel, and this color combination, I mean, so good, so good. I like them a lot. This is like a grayish brown, and with this dusty pink, absolutely lovely. And this sock yarn is much more woolly. It's much more rustic. It was not as nice to knit with because first of all it's quite dark and then it was more fuzzy. The Mondim it's a joy to knit with. Super clear, defined yarn that you can see very well. And yeah, this yarn is a bit more fuzzy, but because it is more woolly, these socks are also warmer, definitely warmer, although they are also knit on 2mm needles. And yeah, but they feel a bit more rustic but soft at the same time, and they feel much more warm. Yeah, I also really like them and I wear them a lot. Then I went back to the Mondim because, I mean, the color palette they have, Yeah, so always when I stand in the shop in front of this shelf with all the beautiful colors of the Mondim, I have a really hard time deciding. But it's always good to go for some neutrals for socks, I would say. So I chose this speckled brown, that's a color 400. Again, stocking knit stitch. Now a short 2x1 ribbing cuff with my signature rolled edge, flap and gusset heel. And here, as a special effect feature, I included some linen to the heel, the Lino Mukka. I had a mini skein in my yarn stash, and this is like a very light color, some off-white cream. And it is super thin, lace weight, it feels like a thread, not really like knitting yarn. And I thought if I just add it to the Mondim, it shouldn't widen the gauge too much. And that was the case, it did not, so I could very well use it together. And I did that to increase the sturdiness of the yarn at the heel, to really increase the durability, and to do this as an experiment. And I like the look of it, so that it is a low contrast here between the sections of the sock. And I must say it works. So I've worn these quite a lot, and it seems to work. So I'm super happy with these socks. These are maybe even my favorite ones from all the socks I knitted this year. And because I now had some of the brown left and I had some of the green left, I wanted to knit another pair. It's these ones, and abracadabra, they are different because I didn't have enough of the brown to make the stripes all over both socks. I had more of the green left, so that's why I made here a larger section of green. I quite like the mismatch. I think I would have preferred them both to be in equal stripes, but I think it's totally fine. This part, the foot part, is anyway in the shoes. The leg part, which is visible, is the same. And I think it is a type of mismatch which looks actually good. I like it. So they have a very short 1x1 ribbing. Again, this small rolled edge. And here I also added linen to the heel. And yeah, also these I've worn a lot, and it works very well. I'm very pleased with this discovery of mine, and I think I will continue doing this, just to be on the safe side, to have a bit more durability here. I mean, the only downside to adding plant fibers to socks is that they need longer to dry after washing, but it's complaining on a high level, really. Yeah, but again, top-down socks in Mondim, 100% wool with a bit of linen. And then I found some other sock yarn in a small shop, and that was the Seehaver Naturfasern Ramie sock yarn. That yarn is 80% wool, 20% Ramie, which is a plant fiber. Now Emmy becomes a bit cranky. Emmy, are you okay? Yeah, so that is a sock yarn with plant fiber in it, and I thought, what a cool idea. Actually, I found this yarn before I did my linen experiment, because I thought if they can add plant fiber to some sock yarn, I can do so too. Yeah, so I used the Ramie sock yarn to knit socks for my partner in the colors 9 and 10, in the green and the blue. Here is a picture. I knit them on 2.5mm needles, and he has really large feet, but they knit up quite quickly, and he really likes them. He wears them a lot, so I think I will make him another pair in that type of yarn. Yeah, so that was also one of the few gift knits I I made this year. And then I went to northern Scandinavia and it was super cold there, and I had to buy boots to not have my feet freeze off. And as people do it there, they buy boots that are a couple of sizes larger than their normal shoe size, and they add lots of warm woolen socks to it. And that was the point when I realized all my hand knitted socks were too thin because I made them for sneakers and to wear like in normal shoes, but now I really had the need for much thicker socks. And I thrifted some yarn, 100% wool, but some Aran weight yarn, and I made these socks. Ramie, hold tight. Here, and this is also an Aran or worsted weight gauge, I think 18 stitches, 17 or 18 stitches. It's some Australian yarn which I wouldn't purchase if I found it here in a shop, because why? There's enough like European yarn around which doesn't have to travel that far. But because here also I added for the cuffs, for the contrasting cuffs and the toe, this is Rauma Wams. So this is Norwegian wool in this plum color, which I had left from the mittens I knit and felted last Christmas. And these are also knit top down, so I started at the cuff and then a flappered gusset heel and a normal toe, and I really like them. So they are really thick, and it was super satisfying to knit them because I knit one sock in one evening so fast. Really, really fun. And I found out, by the way, that they are first very nice for my boots, but also in the house when I wear them in combination with one of the Mondim socks. So good, so warm, the best kind of warmth, really. To have like a thinner pair of woolen socks and then a thick one. I don't know. It's magic. I'm someone who has cold feet all the time, especially because I live in a place or different places without underfloor heating. Yeah, that's even better than like a thin sock and slippers. Wearing both pairs of socks like this in the house, so good. Highly recommend. Yeah, and also having a very like bulky weight or worsted weight, Aran weight type of sock at hand when it's cold can't hurt. Definitely can't hurt. And especially because they are so fast to be knit up. Yeah, then I wanted to try a different type of sock knitting technique, because so far I had only knitted top-down socks, and that can be quite some gambling in terms of yarn. So I have like scales so that I can weigh my yarn, but still I like to buy sock yarn quite on point so that I don't have too much left over. But yeah, it can be a bit stressful to play yarn chicken. And knitting socks toe up circumvents this problem completely, because you can knit that one sock and just stop when you reach half of the weight of the yarn that you have, and that gives you a much better idea and use up your yarn on point. And that's why I wanted to try that and do an afterthought here. And this is what I did with socks fresh off the needles yesterday, my friends. These are my very big worsted weight socks in Rauma Wams, in this pine green, Christmas green really. And I started at the toe, did the normal increases, and knit them up to here in 1x1 ribbing. So having ribbing in that type of gauge is a bit of a joke because it looks somehow super different from normal ribbing. It really looks like a weird structure knit type of thing because it is so wide, the gauge. but it's a style as well. I did here just an Italian bind off, so that these ribs from the ribbing go really from the toe to the very end. And well, I would classify the style of these as rustic, but I like it. It's somehow cool. And the heel. So you knit from the toe to the very end up here, and then you cut the yarn open and insert the heel, and it's knitted like a toe here. You just make increases to create this increase lines, and it's super easy, and it's easy, and I also find it quite comfortable. I also knit the first sock I actually tried this technique with. I can't show you here because I haven't finished the second one, so it doesn't fall under finished objects for 2025. Sorry, but in my next knitting podcast. And with the one I tried out this afterthought heel, and I knew that you can modify the depth of the heel also by inserting 1 or 2 additional rows before you start decreasing, and that makes it actually also comfortable. I would still say that a flapped gusset heel is more comfortable to wear, but totally fine. I see myself doing many more of these socks. Toe up with an afterthought heel. Yeah, so these are not even blocked yet. I really finished them just yesterday. Oh, Emmy, she's sliding off my lap. So another pair for my boots. All these socks. So that was all my knitting from 2025. Lots of socks. I hope you enjoyed the inspiration. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please consider liking and subscribing. If not, also fine. I very much enjoy the community here and sharing ideas and inspirations. And I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, have a safe transition into 2026. Take care and goodbye.